up is a man who supposedly still has a few good brain cells left. It's his first time performing stand-up, and we are lucky to have him. Give him a round of love. Here is Alan Cooper.
Thank you. Let's just have a steam reaction when we finish. You know, we get older, we start thinking more. And I realize that our lives are shaped by our parents, but not just our parents. How about the kids we grew up with? How about the neighborhoods we lived in? I grew up in a neighborhood, Irish, Jewish, and Italian. Nobody cared what anybody was. If you can play ball, you were part of the group. We sat together, my friends, and we decided we'd like to come up with some answer to what we would like for the Christmas holidays. We all agreed that we would love the kids to be right. The question really was, where would our parents hide the bike until the actual holiday? I got up and I said, I have not been in the attic since we're living in this place. Crying is horrible. My Irish friend said, I once saw a mouse down in the basement. I haven't been down there since then. We both looked at our Italian friend, and he said, that's easy. My father would hide it in his shorts. We said, whoa, Tanya, your father would hide the kids to be hiding in his shorts? How can you say that? He said, well, last year I did the same thing. I said, Dad, you would buy me a 10-speed bike? He says, 10-speed bike? It's a 10-speed bike. That went over very well, and only two of us got bikes. I, at the age of 13, was trying to go to high school. Unreal. Today, it would never happen, but I had to take a bus and 2 different trains to get into my high school. Can you imagine any kid doing that at the age of 13 today? Wouldn't happen. Well, we got through that. Then it was time for college. Well, I had to go to college. Why? My older brother and 2 sisters didn't. That left it all on my shoulders. It wasn't the worst thing in the world. Not all of our friends went to college. Some enlisted in the service. I ran into my friend Jerry not too long after that. And he says, boy, I was in the military for like 2 months. I had a captain from the South, real red rouser. Redneck, everything you want to name. He shined his helmet. He shines his shoes. He also taught us hands into the woods. He was going to make us into paratroopers. I said, well, this should be interesting. He said, the captain took us all up in a well-measured plane. He said, you see this red light? When that light comes on, hook up to the sky wire. When the light turns green, that's when you start jumping. All right. Jerry said, 2 minutes went by, and there's the red light. Everybody jumped up, put the clothes on to the guide wire. A couple of minutes later, there's green light. One by one, everybody started to jump. My friend Jerry was last. I said, so what happened? He says, I looked down and I said, I can't jump, Captain. Captain said, what? I think you better jump. Captain, I'm petrified. I can't jump. He says, boy, if you don't jump, I'm going to turn my paper out your ass and you're going to keep jumping down until you jump. So I said, Jerry, did you jump? He says, I was a little beginning. She's on. Get married. We decided to have a baby. Well, the big night finally, one big day, finally honey, it'll all work out and love to see the baby. She says, you did this to me, you caused this pain. Pain I never experienced before. I said, look, I know the man you conceived. She said, so? I said, okay. I suggested I play Captain Kirk from Star Trek and go where nobody has gone before. She looked at me and said, you son of a bitch, I told you it would hurt. And yet, here we are. Well, I said, I can't stay here like this. So what I did was meet another guy down in the waiting room, and I asked him a couple of questions. He seemed experienced. I said, let me ask you one question. How long after the baby's born can we have sex? He said, well, that depends. I said, okay, let's hear it. I said, you can't give me a firm answer. He said, well, it all going to depend on whether she's got a private or a semi-private room. Giving birth is not easy, obviously. The pain, I'm sure, was incredible. And I said to this I said, listen to these poor women yelling and screaming and cursing. He says, calm down. As bad as it is, it's not the worst thing you can think of. I said, go ahead, tell me. He says, what do you think about 50% of these women in a year, 2 years, they're going to go to their husband and say, hey, I'd like to have another child. Boy, did you ever play ball? I said, yeah. He said, you ever get hit in the balls? I said, yeah, obviously. He said, if you go over a year later, the guy that hit in the balls and say, please go again. Well, behind again launches on, we took the baby home into the house, and it was a very small problem. Money was a major issue. I had to get out my underwear drawer and let the baby sleep in the drawer. Sex, obviously, was not one of our primary objectives because I had to close the drawer and it couldn't take too long. But we give, we take, life goes on. Things went very calmly for the next X number of years. And all of a sudden, one morning, it was in January. I remember it well. I got out of bed, and my nipples were sticking out farther than my neck. I couldn't understand what was going on. I walked out of the bedroom. I thought the air conditioner was on, the windows were all open, and the freezer drawer was open. I said, aha, figured it out. The change. You remember that, right? The change. Okay? Great time in our lives. Well, that lasted however long it lasted. And I said, I couldn't stay there in the house that cold. So I decided to do some volunteer work. I found myself in an assisted living home and met a number of great guys, nice women. One of them says, I got a story to tell you. I said, let's hear it. He says, my name is Jake. We had a senior citizens dance, and I met this woman say, he was obviously a true couple. He says, we hit it off very well. So in the evening, after the party was coming to a close, I said, Sadie, you want to go for a bite to eat after this? She said, sure, why not? Go for a bite to eat. All of a sudden, he says, Sadie, you want to go for a drink after this? He said, sure, I'm happy without a drink. Goes ahead, has one, maybe 2 drinks, and says, Sadie, you want to come back to my apartment? We'll slow down a little bit. She said, Jake, I was only hoping you would do this. They go back to Jake's house. dim the lights, slowly getting dressed. And she says, Jay, I got a confession today. He says, oh, now you're going to give me a confession? Am I a priest? She said, Jay, this is very important. You got to listen to me. Okay, what's your confession? Says, Jay, I got a cutie angina. He says, a cutie angina? She says, yes, and you got to be serious about it. He says, I am serious. I'm looking and thank God you got to do it. It's a discovery. And there was another guy. Again, calls me on. Here's a guy that spent every evening in the garden outside after dinner. All he did was just contemplate his life. What he accomplished, what he didn't accomplish. All of a sudden, one night, a woman comes out, sits in the garden, and they get into a nice conversation. She speaks also. Anyway, he says after a while, the conversation was going great. You know what I miss? I really miss a woman's touch. She starts to laugh and says, come on. What are you, 90 years old? What kind of woman's touch you're going to have? I'm not. He says, stop. I'm not interested in lust. I'm not interested in passion. Just a woman's touch. She says, that I can. She goes over there and sits down next to him, opens his pants, and just sits there and holds him. This went on, and great conversation went on for about 2 weeks. All of a sudden, she comes out one night. Harold's not around. Gets nervous, 90 years old, what happened? She looks all over the place for him. Finally goes down by the pool. She sees him lying on a chin. Another woman has her hand in his pants. She runs down there and says, you two-tiny son of a bitch. What does she have that I don't? He looked up at her with a big grin. She's got Parkinson's. For me to decide to call it a career. I went around to all my customers, thanked them for the business they gave me during all the years I was holding on. Well, guess what I wound up holding on was discussing a guy in Brooklyn. I explained to him that I was going to retire, please. I want to thank you for all the business that you've given me. It was rough at times, but you gave me some good business. He says, there you go. I said, I went to Lakewood. He says, Lakewood? They're going to talk to you there? I said, no. That's not Lakewood. We want to this. He says, what do they got there? I said, they have a swimming pool indoors, a swimming pool outdoors, they have bowling, they have parties, they have dances. I said, they even have a golf course there. He says, this I don't know anything about. I said, well, we just put a quick explanation. Golf is a game where there's a ball right at your feet. You take the golf club and try to hit it as far as you can. When you do that, you go after it and try to do it again. The ball's already at your feet, he says. I said, I understand that, but this is the game. I said, but if you did a real good job, you absolutely have to warn the people in front of you. So that's not how do you do that? I said, you're a gentleman, you yell 4. That advises the people in front of you that are balls. From land, hopefully, someone in the other. He says, 4. I said, you don't have to worry about that. He says, why do you say that? Simply because I dealt with you for so many years, I know how you do business. You wouldn't yell 4. He says, how can you say that? I said, again, I know how you do business. If you hit a shot like that, where people's lives are threatened, you're only going out and yell 395. As I said, that was my last call for the career. And I want to thank you for allowing me to do you all today.